to cut into another match here. We have Gabe Carleton Barnes, a Portland local, originally from the East Coast, but he lives over here for his job, playing Stoneblade versus Corbett Gray, always playing Sneak and Show.
And Corbett Gray, we're sort of jumping in, so I'm not even positive whose turn it is, but Corbett has been able to resolve the signature card.
Aggressively casting Show and Tell into Gabe Carleton Barnes' play area.
Yeah. Yeah, it's literally covering the dragon is covering up the Stoneforge Mystic.
Correct. And for those of you guys wondering at home, Gabe Carleton Barnes playing Stoneblade. Your pretty standard list. This particular version of the deck is only playing one Terminus. We have a Vindicate, which is a little spicy, some discard, a bevy of counter spells, and you're always going to find your Batterskull and Umezawa's Jit, and 3 Jace the Mind Sculptors.
Yeah. So pretty straightforward list, although Stoneblade definitely has a lot of wiggle room for, there's a couple slots that are, do you want to have another Thoughtseize or Inquisition, or do you want to have, a second or third Engineer explosives? I mean, there's definitely some wiggle room in the deck. And like one Vindicate is definitely a testament to that. A catch-all.
So we're not exactly where we're showing the match. Okay, well, it looks as though this Show and Tell has resolved. Excuse me, the Sneak Attack has resolved.
Yeah, it looked like a Show and Tell resolved, which put a Sneak Attack into play for Corbett and a Stoneforge Mystic into play for Gabe.
Gotcha.
If I had to guess. I also think that he has the Miser's Caracas in his hand.
It's a good card.
A disaster for.
It's
a
funny.
Disaster for Corbett.
It's funny how good Caracas is now, and like when it was designed and printed, it was it was quite unlikely that it was meant to be, designed to be an answer to the things that it's an answer to now.
Well, that's definitely not. Well, I don't think they were that forward thinking with development or design at the time, because like, why would you put a card like Caracas into the Legends set? It's like, we made all these awesome 7 and 8 cost Legends. I guess we'll just print a land that unsummons them. Taps for a white too. All right. Pretty hard to play with these now. It's sort of like the, not to the same extreme, but it's along the same lines of like putting like City in a Bottle in Arabian Nights. It's like, don't you want people to play with the new cards? I don't know.
No,
no, just,
absolutely
they're all
not.
dead. But
we see Gabe resolving his Ponder, excuse me. And as Patrick said, he does have a Caracas hiding out in his hand, which is a natural trump to Show and Tell.
Yeah. You still have the ability to kind of power through it sometimes with Gristlebrand, but it is challenging.
Yes. And Gabe passes back.
Stoneforge at the ready, and Caracas up.
So let's see what Corbett can do.
Draws and smoothly puts a Lotus Petal into play.
And here's Johnny.
Activates the Sneak Attack. So anything that Gabe wants to do in response, he has to do now.
Correct. Hello. And so the reason that Corbett put that Lotus Petal directly into play, now if Gabe were to, basically Corbett's going to move to his attack step and give Gabe the opportunity to have a response. Gabe will Caracas it, and Corbett will let that resolve, and then Lotus Petal back into play.
Just run it right back.
Correct. Are we good to go this time? How?
All right, and we're done.
Yeah. This is what you wanted. You wanted to turn into a match where someone was getting killed.
Yep.
So you got exactly what you
wanted.
wanted.
Way to go, Corbett.
So Corbett Gray takes down game 2, and he looks just disappointed about the victory. Just not happy whatsoever. But we're going to be moving over to game 3. And Patrick, what does Corbett Gray potentially have to sideboard in?
He has Defense Grid, 3 copies, which is pretty good at fighting through permission, although it's rough here because Gabe actually has a lot of non-permission ways to interact, whether it's through his discard or Caracas or that kind of stuff. But he has copies of Defense Grid and some Red Elemental Blasts. Seem attractive to me. He has Through the Breach in his sideboard, but I would assume it's not for this matchup.
I don't really think it's for this matchup. I mean, he could like potentially hedge if Gabe has some number of Surgical Extractions in his deck, which he actually has 3 of. So he can kind of, do something to the effect of like board out a Sneak Attack, maybe some number of Show and Tell, so that he has Sneak Attack Through the Breach and Show and Tell, so that Surgical Extraction is like a gigantic beating.
Yep.
That's the potential for that. Also, it's not exactly difficult for him to like just cast Through the Breach, like kind of ahead of schedule, because he has double lands and he has Lotus Petal. So that's something else to keep in mind. And because Gabe has discard in his deck, he may want redundant effects to be able to get an Emrakul or a Gristlebrand into play.
Yeah. Although Through the Breach to me seems like he would want it more for matchups where it's like, well, my opponent doesn't have any ways to interact, and so I'd rather cut like Force of Wills and Misdirections to have more combo elements. Like if I was, for me playing Burn, for example, I wouldn't want to play against Through the Breach because it just makes his draws way more consistent. Like
sure.
It's harder for him to fail. So I'm no sneak and show master, but I suspect it's probably more for matchups like that than the counterspell ones. But again, who knows?
Well, the thing you have to keep in mind too with a deck like Gabe Carleton's Barnes and Stone Forge decks, Stone Blade decks in general, is they don't have a ton of counterspells like Blue White Miracles. They don't have counterbalance plus top, that sort of thing. They are using discard instead of those cards.
Yes.
So you're not going to run into a lot of counterspells here. You're going to play against Force of Will. Gabe has 1 Spell Pierce in his main deck, and then checking his sideboard, he has 2 additionals in his sideboard. But he is trying to be proactive instead of reactive.
Yeah.
So once Corbett's hand gets cleared away via discard, via Thoughtseize, via Inquisition of Kozilek, then Corbett can just go, oh, I drew Through the Breach, dead.
Right.
So I think that I agree with you that Through the Breach is worse against counterspell decks, but this is just Gabe is taking a proactive approach instead of a reactive approach.
Yeah.
Looking at Gabe's sideboard, as I said, 2 more Thoughtseizes in his sideboard, 2 more Spell Pierces to go with his first one in the main deck, 3 Surgical Extractions. We actually will see the Gilded Drake come in. We're not going to see the additional Terminus or the Dark Blast, and potentially the Disenchant.
Yeah.
Just in case a sneak attack resolves, like it did in that game, sits there for a minute and he can blow it up.
Right, it's a lot different than the Hive Mind because it often the sneak attack can resolve without another red mana up. Like, a lot of times it just gets put into play. So Disenchant's a lot more reasonable. I believe Disenchant's a lot more reasonable here than it is against Hive Mind.
I would agree. All
right, looks like Corbett's going to 6. Pretty rough to mulligan against Stoneblade in this kind of matchup because they have so many. Like, the Inquisitions and Thoughtseizes become so much more powerful when you've mulliganed.
I would agree with that. As Gabe he's trying to put his cards into the camera, but Gabe, that's not how that works.
Yeah.
It's the thing.
All right. He has a Force of Will and a Brainstorm and a Stoneforge Mystic and some lands.
Plus, I have Patrick by my side, and Patrick is very good at seeing the cards, especially the old ones.
Yeah, the old ones are much better of an eyeball for.
His specialty.
Yeah.
See, it's funny because he's old. What? What?
Oh, I get it. It's like a joke.
I wouldn't call you old. I wouldn't do that.
Hey, did the Redskins win?
I don't know. I'm doing commentary, not looking at sports scores while they're shuffling. I'm a man of integrity. I would never have my phone looking at sports scores.
I'm just mentioning because we were back in the room during our break, watching the great Robert Griffin's debut.
He can really play.
Oh, yeah. I cannot. This is exciting. An exciting time to be alive.
All right, Corbett. Let's see what you can do on 6 cards. Gabe Carleton Barnes leading with a Brainstorm.
Aggressive.
AJ just cringed at home.
Yeah. What? Does he have some zero coster thing that could motivate this?
Nothing that I see. That was
just fired it off.
That's an aggressive Brainstorm. And Corbett leading with a Ponder.
Just so aggro.
Well, it's one-way highway.
Yeah. Somewhere AJ Soccer just herniated a disc. Watching that Brainstorm.
We love you, AJ. We hope you're okay.
Yeah. Corbett looking at a Preordain and 2 lands, it looks like. I mean, he has Ancient Tomb, Lotus Petal, Sneak Attack. He can actually power it through.
Yeah, he could just move in. Be interested to see if he does cast this Lotus Petal this turn or not, and he's going to choose not to, just because of a card like Inquisition of Kozilek can take it right now.
Yeah.
Now you can make the argument that if he's taking Lotus Petal Inquisition, I'm like pretty happy anyway.
Yeah.
But again, if it's something that Corbett's relying on,
maybe they have some sort of prop bet where you're not allowed to like sandbag cards. You just have to cast what you cast when you have the mana available to cast it.
For some reason, I find that unlikely. Marsh Flats. This looks like a Stoneforge Mystic.
Yeah.
Yep.
Trying to save time with the shuffling here. If Corbett wants to force a will, he'll shuffle after the fetch, and otherwise, might as well just get your Battered Skull or whatever nonsense.
And it is going to be the Batter Skull himself. So Corbett is going to begin to be put under some pressure here. Not a lot of pressure.
Yeah, he's got time. He's got time.
But a relevant amount of pressure. It's not going to force his action very quickly, but he can't ignore it either.
Yeah. Fortunately, Emrakul has a way of kind of sweeping up that sort of stuff.
Doesn't mind.
A lot of your incremental advantage can be kind of dusted away from one Emrakul attack, so you can afford to take some hits.
That's definitely true.
So, and we're done here. Corbett going to his turn.
Now, what are the chances Corbett just moves in here as he draws an Ancient Tomb?
Don't get better. Only gets worse.
We see a Force of Will in Gabe Carleton Barnes' hand. I'd be interested to see if Corbett just goes like Ancient Tomb, Lotus Petal, cast Sneak Attack. Let's see if you've got it, buddy. Now, the conservative play, of course, would just be to preordain instead of for next turn. But there are times where it is correct to just get aggressive.
Ben Sek weighed in with perhaps he's playing around Spell Pierce with the Brainstorm.
Okay.
But it's, I mean, are you gonna not? I don't know.
I mean, I understand what he's saying, but at the same time, no one's forcing you to cast Brainstorm on turn 1 when you can cast it on turn 3 with 2 lands up.
Right.
They're on Spell Pierce. So.
Particularly when like Corbett has Ponder and I guess only one Preordain, but he has Ponder and Preordain, so the odds that he spends his turn just firing off a cantrip are pretty high, right? Like,
yes. We're going to see an Ancient Tomb.
Taking 2 points here. You're going to try to stick at Defense Grid. Defense Grid is a card that makes spells 3 more mana to cost when they are being played on your opponent's turn. So it's a very good answer to Permission.
And it's seldomly seen.
Whoa, we are really shoving. We just cracked a pedal to Preordain this turn.
But it is a good way to fight. You know, if we brought up during the sideboarding through the breach against counterspell decks, and you're not liking you wanting it against a matchup that is much faster, but not really against counterspell decks. Well, this is kind of what Defense Grid does against those counterspell decks. Basically, shuts those off.
Oh yeah. No, Defense Grid is good. It's not as good as it is against the counterbalance, more control deck because Gabe has some more proactive measures with Thoughtseizes and the Inquisitions and what have you. So now he basically has to just say go. He has to leave his 3 mana up to. He has to leave his 3 mana up just to be able to Force of Will. And Corbett has just drawn a Spell Pierce. Spell Pierce becomes dramatically better at fighting a counter war once Defense Grid is in play, assuming you're trying to shove through things on your own turn.
Yeah. Miles better at that point.
Yep. So I think Corbett basically needs 1 more turn to be able to Emrakul here. He needs to, if he just tries to play a land and sneak attack this turn, it means Force of Will plus the 3 mana can get it done. If he waits till next turn, he can resolve it with Spell Pierce backup. But it means that he also can't fire off in the same turn. So we're going to try to just land our sneak attack here.
That's a curious play to me.
It seems like when you have Pierce plus another land in your hand, you just want to wait 1 more turn.
Yeah, I don't understand really what the rush is. Like, he has plenty of time. He's not underneath any pressure. As we're going to see Gabe put Batter Skull into play. Maybe Gabe doesn't have another blue card for his Force of Will.
Yeah, it looks like he's got Surgical Extraction, Force of Will. Well, I think part of the reason to try to go for it this turn, I guess, is because Corbett can't even just... He doesn't have a second red, so we can't land Sneak Attack and use it in the same turn.
Sure.
So at that point, you're exposed to any number of things. Like, if you can't fire off in the same turn, then, like, if Gabe has something like, Vindicate or Disenchant or something, like, things can still go wrong.
Sure. But, I mean, you're also being opened up to that right now, too.
Sure.
So, I mean, either way, I think that the way he did it was, like, a lot riskier. Because not only, like, the way that you're talking about doing, you're opening yourself up to, like, Disenchant, Vindicate, like a very small set of cards, where the way that Corbett did it is, like, he's opening himself up to those same set of cards, but in addition, he's opening himself up to Force of Will, to Spell Pierce, like a bunch of cards that just really shouldn't be turned on because he played a Defense Grid.
Well, Pierce, yeah. Pierce is not an issue. It's basically only Force of Will we're talking about being the risk. So we're going to fire off a Surgical Extraction here on Lotus Petal, it looks like. I think the reason that we're doing this is because Gabe, again, has Caracas in his hand, So the thing he's most concerned about right now is Corbett drawing another red source to be able to go over the top of Caracas next turn.
For the exact same thing that happened the last game.
Yeah, exactly. This may be the, this actually may be the, not necessarily contextually, because I understand why Gabe is making this play, it makes total sense, but in terms of like the least juicy surgical extraction target of all time, we might have just found it here.
Give me those lotus petals, bro. I'm taking those with me.
So I assume after this, we're just going to place our play our Caracas down and pass the turn.
So what it looks like here is that if Corbett is able to draw another red source of mana,
he's going to be able to do the same thing that happened last game.
And leave Gabe permanentless.
No, Gabe will be allowed to keep one.
I'll be able to keep one permanent because he can sacrifice the germ token. You're right. You're right.
It's not too bad.
I apologize, Gabe.
Don't overreact.
You will have a permanent left.
Oh no!
We call that, in the business, we call that having it.
Pick up stuff.
See, no.
And put it in your graveyard.
Pick up all but one of the stuff. See, we just went over that.
You get to keep.
He gets to keep one of the things.
You can keep your Caracas or whatever. It's your anti-Emrakul card. You can keep it. It's on the house.
As Corbett is going to activate Sneak Attack here. I feel like Gabe should just keep shuffling his deck and just never never give it back.
The IRL disconnect.
Yeah. I'm still shuffling. I don't feel the randomization is close to good enough. Activate
It's happening. It's coming. It's coming.
Spaghetti. We're reading it? Gabe, you know what it does. Gabe.
Yeah, this is the real life equivalent of the disconnect. Never give the deck back.
Gabe is an acquaintance of mine, and I know he knows what Emrakul does.
All right, we'll run it back.
How about again?
Dang.
He's going to show the hand. And now, choose 6, kind sir.
Hey, come on, man. You got to keep your...
There it is.
All right.
There's it. There it is, ladies and gentlemen. Corbett Gray, showing you just how difficult it can be to draw another red source of mana, which is not very.
Hey,